Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Channel Insights podcast. I'm your host, Dinara, and this is a podcast where we transform each conversation into actionable insights. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back my friend, Dr. Alejandro Canonero. But he's not only my friend and the previous guest of the show, he's also an architect of the revenue engines. Welcome to the show, Alejandro.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dinara. It's a pleasure to be with you again. It's good to see you. Good to see all the good work you've been doing over time. Happy to see that you continue with the podcast. I think it helps everyone to hear different voices and to hear your insightful questions and the answers that your guests have, how they share their knowledge. So thank you for having me, and it's great.
Likewise. So, Dr. Alejandro, today is a very crucial topic because we're approaching the end of the year, and a lot of companies, tech companies, are reviewing their budgets and setting up the goals. So, how do you think they should approach the revenue engines to be successful in 2026?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a very insightful question that I think everybody is thinking about next year and their plans, their objectives, their targets, and it's critical to think about the go-to-market motion, which usually tends to be underestimated as just some of the sales activities that a company performs to grow in the market. But actually, when you look at the numbers, 75% of the shareholder value that big tech companies in the S&P share are derived. This shareholder value, 75%, is derived from growth. And growth is led by a sound go-to-market strategy that is cohesive, holistic, comprehensive of all available channels to communicate with customers. And that involves from branding, marketing, positioning, lead generation, opportunity development, and then sales activities, and also, which is usually an afterthought, is ecosystem innovation. And anchoring a go-to-market strategy with an ecosystem view, with an ecosystem perspective, is what is going to drive the highest growth and the most sustainable growth for a company, instead of just doing everything on their own and thinking that they got the silver bullet, and if they hire more salespeople, that will solve the problems of growth that they have. So a more comprehensive, holistic go-to-market strategy is what we need to be thinking about now.
Absolutely. And I remember actually from our previous conversations and by reading your book, the importance of the ecosystem. So when we talk about revenue engines, and there are a lot of startups that are popping up here and there, and, sometimes building their customer base and bringing up the new product into the market. How should they approach actually? What are, let's say, the best roadmap for a startup to build a comprehensive, as you mentioned, cohesive go-to-market strategy? Where should they start?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, usually when we start using these words, like I just did, like holistic, comprehensive, overarching, it sounds fluffy and it also sounds excessive. And people say, well, I'm not going to boil the ocean. Of course, you need to start from where you are at and start in the simplest fashion possible. But that doesn't mean that you don't need to have a good vision and a good perspective of where you're standing. So for a small company, startups particularly, always the core is to have a problem to solve. First, fall in love with the problem, dive deep into the problem you're solving, and solve a problem. Don't come up with a solution that doesn't have a problem. So first find the problem, then find the technical solution that will address it. But usually the creators and some of the most successful entrepreneurs of our era that we can look at are Elon Musk, an engineer, right? Bill Gates, another engineer. A lot of people that are builders. We have a lot of builders creating startups, which is great. And the engineering mindset tends to be sometimes focused on the problem, which is where we should all start. But it should not remain with an engineering mindset in terms of thinking about the old-fashioned thinking of distribution of a product. The other day I was looking at a presentation from a product manager at Lovable. It's a very successful app. And the terms that she was using in her presentation were, we need to find distributors of our product. And, I reached out and said, look, that's a very old-fashioned mindset that you have that is not appropriate to generate the growth that you want for your company. And usually startups will go directly to the consumer because that's how you get buyers, and that's great. But that's not going to give you the exponential growth that you want unless you start collaborating with other companies. So go back to the initial setting and say, how should a small company think about the go-to-market? Well, you first fall in love with the problem, address the problem, create the solution, but look at where that problem sits in the overall workflow of your buyer, right? And there will be companies doing something similar adjacent to what you do. And those could be your competitors if they expand into the solution of the problem that you're solving, or they could be your partners. And what is the typical technology infrastructure that your buyer will have? And who could be the hyperscaler, cloud provider, platform leader that I could partner with? If it's open source, if it's a walled garden, it's a cloud hyperscaler, what is it? What country are we starting on? And who are the prominent players? And do I have a play as a complementer in a platform strategy?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what technology, when I start engineering the solution to this problem, what technology I'm going to be developing on top of? Is it going to be the Google platform? Is it going to be the Amazon platform? Is it going to be the Microsoft platform? Is it going to be, what is it? Because that's a critical component of your product creation, but also affects your ecosystem developing in the future. They should not be decoupled. They should not be ignored. Because if you start developing on Microsoft, don't expect then to be loved by Amazon unless you port the whole product infrastructure to Amazon, right? So product development, engineering thinking at the very beginning will affect your go-to-market. And that's what I've been trying to share about the long-term impact of very early day decisions that affect how a company will then be able to grow in the future by being part of a bigger play, by being part of an ecosystem. And today, of course, it's a pun to the name of my book and my philosophy. There is a war of ecosystems, and we can see it with the chip war now between NVIDIA and the Chinese chip creators, and how Google is creating chips that are going to be competing with NVIDIA for AI, and how everything is a continuous battle. And there are different battlegrounds in this war: the chips, the mindset of the developer, and how I conquer the developer. So which developer community is your product going to be shared to, trying to get their mindset, get their approval? And developers are strong influencers in the B2B market. And so how are you going to work with them? How are they going to love your product, criticize your product, help you improve it? So these are ecosystem impact and future growth impact decisions that need to be thought at the moment that you say, okay, I'm going to create this solution for this problem that no one is solving.
Yes, and this is the key component, actually, I believe, of the revenue engine strategy or methodologies you've just mentioned. You also touched upon the cross collaboration, which is important. You also touched upon the question which I actually had for you, as in what role does product led growth play in today's revenue engines? Thank you very much. But there are so many elements to it to be successful. Who do you believe should be driving this go to market strategy within a company? Obviously, it depends very much on each product, and but is there some kind of generic recipe you may give or share with us?
Sure. Well, I think I'm going to state what is the obvious to me, right? This is at the highest level of the company. No doubt, particularly depends on the size of the company, right? If you're talking about a startup, of course, CEO and CRO and CTO are the ones that should be thinking about this before investing a lot of resources in a particular direction. If we're talking about big companies, of course, is the revenue engine, right? But it should not be decoupled from the engineering product development teams. And I see this happening in big companies. There is a huge decouple. I saw big companies having strong, powerful engineering teams that are creating products that no one wants, right? So, and then you have a lot of losses. And so, well, everybody needs to try, and now it's a new fashion to iterate fast and fail fast. Yeah, fail fast in the direction of the problems that the customers need solving. And also, I saw a lot of companies creating products and then throwing them over the fence to sell, to sales, to sell, with no APIs for other partners to connect to, no connectors or development platform or sandbox for other technology companies to connect and create a bigger value proposition, right? So I don't think it takes a long time to think about these things for people that know what they're doing. It's just a matter of really doing it and leaving the egos aside and sitting down on how are we going to collaborate with these products that we're going to take to the market, and what are the feedback loops that are going to take the reaction from the market and feed it to product engineering to fine tune the product, so we accelerate adoption and reduce the time between launch, feedback, improvement, right? So I think that's a critical element. So I will call it, today is called the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer will be the point of the arrow, but it could not be done with a very tight dance with the CTO and the people developing the product. They cannot be decoupled, and they cannot be sequential. What I'm trying to state is you don't develop the product first and then you sell, you see who you're going to sell it to. The new motions are talking about finding a customer first with a problem and then you develop the product for that problem, right? So they should go in parallel.
Yeah, great. Actually, do you happen to have an example of a maybe a known company where they built a strategy, a product, then they got a feedback, realized they were not doing it, they were not going into the right direction, and then they pivoted and then became more successful? Is there any use cases that pop up into your mind?
Yeah, well, I got many from my ex-employers, but I can give you a very well-known example of the Fire phone from Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
They developed, invested billions in a phone, and Jeff Bezos always talk about it. By the way, he's an outstanding leader, of course, one of the best, right? But and he encourages innovation in his company, and it's amazing what he did. Many other successes cover for some of these failures. That's an example. In both companies, and Amazon and Google, where I work in their cloud units, I worked for AWS for 5 years and at Google Cloud for 3 years. In both, I created teams that didn't exist before. And both companies were very engineering oriented, not very partner oriented, not very much ecosystem oriented, particularly Google Cloud, for example. They were the creators of the Android ecosystem, Google as a company, right? Which is an amazing ecosystem that was the alternative to the Apple walled garden ecosystem, right? And they enable a lot of creation, a lot of development on top of the Android ecosystem, where some of the Chinese companies develop their own operating system, like Samsung, right, for their phones. So extremely impactful. The creators of the GPT, and now
Yeah.
everybody's using to create AI tools. So very pioneers in engineering. But then when we needed to partner with companies, they didn't have the margins to incentivize partners to sell their cloud products. They didn't have the partner programs in place to enable partners to take the technology, learn from it, and then sell it to the world. So there was a lack of readiness to be a true enterprise player and compete with Microsoft in the B2B arena, which was what they were aiming to do, right? It took time and it took a lot of iterations, and they're still working at it because they are not, they don't have the ecosystem that Amazon or Microsoft will have. So that's an example of how sometimes certain decisions are made at an engineering or product level, and then there is not much thought about how this is going to land in the market and how is it going to be adopted and what is the procurement process of the buyer that I'm going after, which is B2B. It's not, usually in Google it was, take care of the end user and everything is going to work out. But in this case, the end user is not the buyer all the time, particularly
Yeah.
for complex products and advanced technologies. There is a team of people that evaluates, and there is a purchasing process that needs to take place with RFPs or technical definitions. And you need the incumbent players that are selling to this market. So my focus is B2B, right? So AI, SaaS and cloud, B2B, professional services and technology. So that's my bread and butter, not so much focus on the consumer. So all my talk, all my conversation, all my sharings, my perspective is aimed at this market. And if you want to sell into the B2B, you need to work with the incumbents. They already doing things for your customer. A bank already has a lot of IT companies helping them. So you need to be able to work with them to help the customer embrace your technology, right? So those are some of the examples that I see. When I was at Amazon in 2015 and the European Union released their first ever European cloud tender at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody was invited. And I was looking for partners, the typical global system integrators and regional system integrators, to partner with us to bid into that RFP. And everybody was entertaining conversation, but no one was going with us. We were an American cloud company. Who's going to store the data in an American cloud company? And no one wanted to partner with us. Amazon didn't have great partner programs. So, when the deadline started to come close, I had to take the RFP of the European Union and go to Rome and meet with some senior executives, including Fabrizio Velesa, which was, at the time was a very senior guy at Telecom Italia. And we partnered with Telecom Italia and we, scrambled to craft our solution and our offering. We put it out there, we responded, and we won, right? We won the first ever European cloud tender with Telecom Italia when no one wanted to partner with AWS at the time. They had very few commercial partners that were selling to commercial, but no one wanted to touch Amazon for the public sector particularly. So these are all journeys that everybody looks at that and say, well, look, they dominate the market. Yes, they did. They do, but they went through a few humps, and that could have been smoother if this was thought after in a different way.
Wow, what a great example. It's an example of resilience and great success. Yeah, never giving up.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. We both work in B2B, and I've always throughout all my career worked for the channel and in the channel. But recently I was asked a question about how, if I get hired in that company, how would I convince the sales guys, about the importance of the channel? Obviously, that company was planning to launch and relaunch the channel, the new partner program. Why do we need channel per se? Why would we not need? I know you've mentioned this like briefly, but what would your answer be? I'm very keen to hear.
Sure. Yeah. I had this conversation many times. It's surprising how it still needs to take place, right? Everybody comes with their mindset, and sometimes it's a dialogue that needs to take place. What I will say is there are a few basic examples and more advanced examples. Starting with the basic, I will say, you as a salesperson, do you have a lead development team? How are leads generating for your company? Or do you have to do cold calling to find your leads? How big is your contact Rolodex? And when are you going to run out of contacts to create opportunities to sell? How many calls can you make in a day? How many sales can you do in a month? Okay, great. An X, Y, Z number, right? Based on the situation of that company, of that. How many salespeople do you need to do how many sales per month to achieve your revenue targets to meet the demands of your stakeholders and the plans that you have set up? Okay, you have that outlined in pen and paper on the most sophisticated spreadsheet ever. Now think about adding 10 more sellers for every seller that you have. If you, in your product definition and in your commercial elaboration of your product offering, leave space to allow your partner to get some of the profit of your product and to build on top of it or adjacent to it. And you have companies promoting your product, and that company has 10 salespeople that are going to be selling your product alongside their products. and they will get paid for it with a share of your profit, and they will bring you business and they will make more business. But and a lot of people, and I found it very recently also, they didn't want to share a tiny bit of their profit in exchange for that tiny bit multiplied 1,000 times. So what I'm trying to say is, you don't want to lose $10 sale. Well, you could get 100 sales more that will cover 50 times what you're giving away to a partner. So people are still looking at, absolute profit, not as an engine of growth, just as a cost. This is another, if you want to look at it, another element of the cost of sales. And, it's basic. I say, well, if I introduce that, my product is going to have a cost, so I need to have a higher price, and it's going to put me in a disadvantage in a competitive position. Well, you look at the value you're creating with your partner, and don't think, that's why I hate the word channel. Don't think about this is a pass-through. Think it in a way and present it and create your product in a way where your partner can build something bigger than what your product in itself does, right? So allow your partner to build on top of your product, create blueprints for development, help your partners to implement your product faster, reducing their cost so they can make more money in every implementation by making it easier for partners to learn how your product works, how it's implemented, how it's adopted, and how they can expand it. Right? So if
Exactly.
they start expanding, for example, a particular application for financial services for your product, then they will own a little bit of IP and a little bit of professional services, and they will differentiate themselves in the market. And you will have a champion in the financial services industry that is promoting your product embedded in their own portfolio, right? That's an example I'm trying to give, that companies need to look beyond a little penny and a dollar here and 10% here and there, and don't look at partners as a distribution of your product. That's the mindset that needs to disappear, and it needs to be a mindset of co-building, co-innovating. So it takes a long time. Yeah, it takes a long time, but it's more sticky. If you co-develop with a partner, you are going to be embedded more deeply into the workflow of your buyer. So it will be more difficult to replace your product with something cheaper, something faster, or something simpler, right? So you want to be embedded in a way that has the highest value and has the strongest stickiness into the product life cycle of your customer, right? On how they do things. And standalone is one thing. You can, take some products out and replace them. But if they are part of a bigger value chain, then you are part of something better for the customer.
Exactly. Absolutely. Totally agree with you. You've shared so many golden nuggets here. It's absolutely mind blowing. As we're wrapping up our discussion now, is there anything else you'd like to share with me and with the audience? Anything I
Sure.
haven't
Thank you.
asked you, perhaps, or haven't thought about?
Yeah, well, you and me and everyone learn every day about new things. I will say that it's important to stay grounded and keep learning without being swollen by the hype. And everything now has AI at the beginning or at the end, which is sometimes helping in the commercial visibility of a product. Just make sure that you don't oversell what you are offering to avoid further disappointment down the line from your customers or from your partner ecosystem, where they don't see the value of your product, hence they don't want to put it in their portfolio. And this is a question that sometimes founders create a channel team because we want to sell more. Like Alejandro said, with partners we can sell more. Yeah, like Dinara said that we need a channel, right? They're going to sell for us. And then they start, I had this situation recently, they start calling the partner and say, why are you not selling my product? What's wrong with you? And the partner will say, well, you give me 5 or 10% at the most of your product. It's taking hours and days to sell it. It's difficult to implement. You don't hand me any leads and you don't give me any business development support, but you're pushing me to sell your product. What makes you think that you're important to me? Right? So when we think ecosystem, the word ecosystem is very highly misused. today everybody just throw ecosystem into whatever they say about partners. It's not true. Ecosystem is a customer as well. It's the government. That's the ecosystem. It's not your
Yes.
partner, right? It's not just your partners, and your partners should be your partners, not your channel or your distributor. So that's the mindset I want to attack. Less transactional, more collaborative, more builder with other companies. And you don't need to start with 100. Choose two partners where you can build with, two service partners that they can take your product into their portfolio and meaningfully present it into their customer base, expand your network. Choose one hyperscaler, and based on the technology and the commercial decision your company gonna go to a marketplace. Try to have at least one point in each of the key layers: hyperscaler marketplaces, hyperscaler support for product development and go-to-market and technological development, service partners a couple, technical partners another couple, and you start with them and then iterate, and some partners will work, others won't, and you replace them. And that's how I will start for a startup, right?
And I believe if one follows the golden rules or the roadmaps you've just shared, go to market methodologies, then we'll have customers for life. It's a win win for everyone. And that's what we're aiming to do. As you've mentioned, ecosystem is not just the channel, it's everything, it's ecosystem. That's what it stands for. So it's all together. Thank you so much for this fantastic, insightful conversation that will transform into actionable insights. And thank you for your time and generosity. And if I don't speak to you before the new year, wishing you a happy new year.
Thank you, Dinara. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the insightful questions. I wish you all very well and a fantastic start of the new year.
Thank you.